Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. This is Optibotimus coming at you with another video review. And on today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the Juggernaut Build-A-Figure of the Marvel Legends 2016 X-Men Wave. Now, with the exception of Deadpool, all 7 of the other figures come with a piece to actually make Juggernaut. So if you collected them all, you have everything that you need. And it is as simple as just plugging the pieces in. Now, his waist piece here, you have his belt, which is a separate piece. So you can choose if you want to leave this on or not. I'm going to go ahead and leave it on there. It doesn't really matter all that much to me. In some versions, he did have the belt, so it's okay. So just plug all this together, and then you can kind of shift everything where you want it to be. Boom. Now, if you want to, you can actually detach these pieces and take them off. They actually detach fairly easily, so it's not a completely permanent sort of attachment. So there, get that in there. Come around here, you got the ball joint for the head, and boom, there you have Juggernaut. And with an overall great representation of a classic looking Juggernaut, what they basically did here was make him a lot more detailed, a lot more articulated, and really kind of fine-tuned some of those details, making this figure absolutely terrific. Now, coming in to take a closer look at Juggernaut, as you can see, sculpting-wise, that is an absolute angry, gruesome, mad-looking face. I love the way that that looks. Even taking a look at how, like, busted up his teeth are, I mean, that is amazing. You got some nice coloring, giving it a very yellowish, stained kind of look. Now, one part that I don't particularly like is some angles, as you can see right through the helmet, kind of showing underneath right there, which, you know, and right there, I mean, right through the side. I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't feel like it's attached to him. I mean, like, you got those nice rivets that kind of go all the way around, you know, kind of giving it like that look like that helmet is attached to his body, like it always seems to be depicted. And when you have those gaps there, it kind of breaks that up. Like I said, it's almost just like it's just sitting right on the top there. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't remove, and that is something that I wish it actually did. The amount of detail that they put in the face underneath the helmet really is all there, so I don't know why they couldn't have done that, to be totally honest, but unfortunately it's not, but it still looks really very cool. Now, one other part that you're noticing is there is a color difference between the helmet and the rest of the suit here. Now, that doesn't bother me all that much because this is meant to kind of replicate metal, and you can see some nice paint detail kind of going throughout there, giving it a nice wash and kind of irony-y sort of look, I guess. Same down here with these little bits that go around his bicep, his wrists, and then also on his knuckles. But what I don't particularly like, and it kind of stands out, is that there is a color difference between this piece and this. You can see that this is a little bit darker than that is, and that really throws it off. It still looks good, and sculpting wise it still looks very nice. I mean, throughout the rest of the body you can see some like nice veins and everything in his muscles, good musculature through the chest and everything. Just the paint and the color match is really off, and that does kind of bother me. You got a nice black belt right here. Like I said, you don't necessarily have to have this on, and if you removed it, you would just see his waist right there, but I kind of like leaving that on there. As I talked about, in some versions he had, in some versions he didn't, but most times he had a belt on. Again, real nice sculpted detail for his thighs and everything, and then great detail with his boots. I like the wrinkles that they kind of got in here. Overall, just really solid and massive figure that has a great deal of heft. Most of it comes in like his arms and his legs. The actual torso bit right here is kind of hollow, so I mean, you can hear how that sounds compared to how that sounds. There's a much more solid feel to his limbs than his actual torso, but he still is a very hefty figure, and I really get a sense of mass with this guy. For his height, as you can see, he's much larger than your normal Marvel Legend figure, standing at a little bit over 8.5 inches, coming in at about 8 3/4. And then for a comparison to a couple of other Build-A-Figures that I have, here he is next to the recently released Onslaught Build-A-Figure, as well as the much older Holocaust figure, which I've had in my collection for several years. For his articulation, it is on a ball joint, but as you rotate it, the actual helmet kind of bumps along the rest of his musculature, so in doing so, it tends to pop off the ball joint if you go too far. It does also have that neck hinge, which allows him to look about that far down and about that far up, which is a pretty decent range of motion, but again, it is a little bit more limited. The shoulders here move in and out. I like how actually this is cut here, where the actual arm can kind of go underneath the actual torso bit, so you get a nice range of motion there. It's not very limited. It also rotates very nicely. It's on a bit of a soft ratchet joint right there. He does rotate at the upper part of the bicep. He's got soft ratchet joints here at the elbow, and then the wrists also rotate, and they also flex forward and back. He does have an upper diaphragm joint, as you can hear, also very clickety, and then he does rotate at the waist, but the belt will kind of get in the way depending on how high you have it positioned on him. If you have it a little bit lower, obviously it rotates a little bit more freely, but keeping it up kind of where it's supposed to be on the body, it kind of limits some of that. The hips move forward and back, but the legs, because of how big they are, do get in the way a little bit, but you get a pretty decent range of motion with it. Then they move out to about that far, but again, because of the sculpting of the leg, it only goes about that far out. He does rotate at the upper part of the thigh. He's got a fairly soft ratchet joint here at the knee. Nothing at the boot or anything, but the ankles do move forward and back. They kind of stop about that far. It's pretty decent, and then it goes back, and then it does also have that little rocker thing. I just always find it weird to get a wide pose like that. You end up having to now turn the leg to get that flat on the ground. It just kind of looks weird, but I do appreciate the full range of motion that the ankles have, so lots of articulation in the guy. But I am ultimately very happy with Juggernaut and the rest of this wave of X-Men figures. As you can see, they look great together, and this has been a great way for me to kind of get my feet wet with Marvel Legend figures. Unfortunately, reviews haven't been that great, to be totally honest. I recognize that there are a lot of other people that are reviewing Marvel Legend figures, so if you've been enjoying these past few videos, I really do want to thank you and tell you how much I appreciate your support. I am going to be continuing to review Marvel Legend figures, but I'm going to be very selective with the figures that I get. Because I collect things like Hot Toys, there are certain characters I really don't feel like getting Marvel Legend figure versions of, such as Spider-Man, Iron Man, the Avengers, things like that. But because Hot Toys hasn't even really touched X-Men, well, with the exception of Wolverine, I think Marvel Legend figures of those characters will be the route that I take. But this is a terrific wave. The only figure that you don't see here is Deadpool, who I ultimately decided to use as a giveaway to patrons of mine. So if you're interested in giveaways, make sure you check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/Optibotimus. But as for these guys, if these are figures that you'd be interested in adding to your collection, they are out now at various retail locations. So if you're looking for them, good luck and happy hunting. Or as always, there's Big Bad Toy Store. So all you have to do for that is click on the link down in the video description. You'll go to BBTS, where you can check out availability on these guys, as well as the rest of the Hasbro Marvel Legend figures. But beyond that, guys, that's about it. So once again, I want to thank you for tuning in. This has been Optibotimus. Don't forget that if you like this video to please like and share it. Also be sure to subscribe in case you haven't already subscribed. That way you get email notifications and never miss a future review of mine. And as always, until next time, I'll talk to you later.